Su Ning held the Qinglu Dan and fell silent. Yu Xinghe assumed the young man was struggling with how to politely accept such a valuable gift. After all, 3 Qinglu Dan were worth 1,500 taels of silver, enough to buy a huge amount of spirit medicine. But after a moment, Su Ning gently placed the pills back into the box. Deputy Manager Yu, this gift is too precious. I cannot accept it. Yu Xinghe's smile stiffened. In truth, Su Ning was tempted. If he sold the pills, he could exchange them for spirit medicine and gain over a dozen energy units. But he understood something clearly. Accepting the gift meant owing to Yuan Trading Company forever. During his time in Maple Lane, Su Ning had already realized the company's influence. The black armored guards appeared powerful on the surface, but in reality, the station was heavily controlled by the Yuan Trading Company. Still, Maple Lane belonged to Kangyun County, and the true rulers were ultimately the higher-ups of the black armored guards. Su Ning believed the company's arrogance would not go unchecked forever. For now, he wanted distance, not entanglement. Yu Xinghe tried again. Master Su, this is only a small gesture. Su Ning calmly waved him off. I appreciate the intention, but please keep it. Then he turned to Feng Xigua. Let's go, old Feng. Yu Xinghe watched them leave from the second-floor window while the shopkeeper stood beside him. This Su Ning can't be bought, the shopkeeper muttered. Yu Xinghe sneered. Even station head Chen Run is under our control, let alone a small black armored guard. Still, Su Ning's behavior bothered him. According to our information, he came from Tao Village and experienced displacement in the past. Someone like that should crave money and resources. Yet he showed neither insecurity nor greed. Yu Xinghe narrowed his eyes. Either he has hidden confidence, or he's very clever. So he's difficult? No matter how smart he is, he'll yield eventually. Yu Xinghe spoke with certainty. Today he refused publicly. Tomorrow he'll accept privately. He has no choice. After all, Su Ning was only a minor black armored guard. Outside the shop, Su Ning sighed. What a pity. Feng Xigua followed quietly, inwardly full of admiration. 3 Qinglu Dan were more wealth than he could save in 10 years. After walking a while, Su Ning asked casually, does the Yuan Trading Company have a close relationship with the Maple Lane Guard Station? Feng Xigua hesitated before answering honestly. Very close. Lieutenant Chun and the company's chief manager are deeply connected. Because of that, most people in the station are tied to the company as well. Su Ning immediately understood Feng Xigua's intentions. The old city guard wanted to attach himself to a promising superior. I heard I can choose a few city guards to assist me, Su Ning said. Yes, sir. I'm new here. You can work under me. Feng Xigua's face reddened with excitement. I'm willing to go through fire and hell for you, sir. Su Ning laughed lightly. Then tell me more about the Maple Lane Guard Station on the way back. Over the next few days, Su Ning secretly asked Tao Qing Yuan and the others to investigate the relationship between the Yuan Trading Company and the Black Armored Guards. Meanwhile, he familiarized himself with Maple Lane through Feng Xigua. He also met several other Black Armored Guards, only to discover they were just like Chun Run, showing up for appearances while neglecting actual duties. One day, after returning to his study from patrol, a city guard arrived. Sir, Lieutenant Chun requests your presence. Su Ning's eyes narrowed slightly. He had a feeling this summons was connected to the Yuan Trading Company. Without delay, he headed toward Chun Ren's study. Su Ning entered Chun Ren's study and saluted. Chun Ren looked exhausted as usual, only showing a trace of spirit when glancing at the flowers beside him. You've been here a few days already. How are things? I'm doing well, Su Ning replied calmly. After a brief silence, Chun Ren finally asked, have you had contact with the Yuan Trading Company? Su Ning already expected this. I met Deputy Manager Yu. Chun Ren leaned back slightly. Yu Xinghe is a capable man. Since you're new to Maple Lane, there are things you may not understand. He began explaining how, 30 years ago, Kangyun County had been barren when the Black Armored Guards first arrived. The Yuan Trading Company had entered early, helping develop trade routes and commerce until Kangyun County became a major trading hub. Now, nearly 30% of the county's business belonged to them, contributing enormous taxes and influence. So, Chun Ren concluded, the Yuan Trading Company is a trusted friend of the Black Armored Guards. Su Ning listened quietly. The meaning behind the speech was obvious. The Yuan Trading Company had status, roots, and protection. Then Chun Ren placed a wooden box onto the table. Su Ning immediately recognized it, the same 3 Qinglu Dan he had returned earlier. He almost laughed. The Yuan Trading Company had gone directly to his superior to pressure him. Over the past few days, Su Ning had secretly investigated the company through Tao Qing Yuan and others. He learned that many guard stations feared or disliked the Yuan Trading Company, and even higher-ranking Black Armored Guards were dissatisfied with the company's growing arrogance. They simply had not acted yet. Because of that, Su Ning had already made up his mind. He would neither side with them nor openly oppose them. Unfortunately, Chun Ren clearly intended to drag him aboard. Su Ning, Chun Ren said casually, you newcomers still face assessments. In martial arts, talent matters, but resources matter too. Without enough resources, your progress slows. He pushed the box forward. These Qinglu Dan are perfect for the mortal realm 3rd stage. With them, you can easily keep your cyan plate status, perhaps even challenge for a yellow plate. Su Ning remained silent. Chun Ren's expression darkened. What? I'm personally giving them to you, and you still refuse? Su Ning appeared pressured by Chun Ren's authority and finally stepped forward to take the box. Only then did Chun Ren smile again. Good. Train well and bring honor to Maple Lane Guard Station. Then he added deliberately. Remember, this gift came from Deputy Manager Yu Xinghe. Thank him when you get the chance. Su Ning nodded expressionlessly and left. After he was gone, Chun Ren closed his eyes beneath the winter sunlight and sneered, a countryside outsider acting arrogant. Ridiculous. Su Ning felt no anger after leaving the study. To him, Chun Ren was merely De Yuan Trading Company's puppet. Even if he had been forced to accept the Qinglu Dawn, he could still return them again. Back in his study, Feng Xigua was already waiting anxiously outside the door. Perfect timing, Su Ning said as they entered the room. Over the past few days, Feng Xigua's status had risen sharply because of his connection to Su Ning. Other city guards now called him Brother Xigua, and even his family treated him with newfound respect. Su Ning had become the key to his future. So when he heard Chun Ren had summoned Su Ning, he immediately worried trouble would follow. Su Ning placed the wooden box on the table. Send these back to De Yuan Trading Company. Return them to Yu Xinghe. Feng Xigua instantly recognized the Qinglu Dawn and hesitated. Master, did Lieutenant Chen force you to accept them? Yes, Su Ning replied lightly. But I still don't want them. Feng Xigua hesitated after hearing Su Ning insist on returning the Qinglu Dawn again. Master, he said cautiously, rejecting Yu Xinghe once was only disrespecting De Yuan Trading Company. But returning the gift a second time is slapping Lieutenant Chun in the face. He is your direct superior. Su Ning remained calm. Lieutenant Chun is my boss, but Captain Chu is also my boss. Feng Xigua immediately understood and stopped persuading him. He picked up the wooden box and left for De Yuan Trading Company. After he left, Su Ning sat alone in thought. From everything he had gathered, there were no visible ties between Chu Daiyou and De Yuan Trading Company. If Chu Daiyou truly stood apart from them, then Chun Ren could not easily suppress him despite being his direct superior. That evening, Su Ning returned to Campsite 3. The new recruits still lived in the camp because none of them had residences in the county yet. More than 30 guards were stationed there, mostly handling patrols and basic security. Since the city guards backed them, the work was relaxed, leaving plenty of time for martial arts training. Back in the room, Tao Qingping was washing his feet. You're back, Tao Qingping greeted. Don't neglect martial arts just because guard station work is easy. Strength is what matters most for us newcomers. Su Ning nodded casually. I still have plenty of time to practice. Tao Qingping then excitedly mentioned rumors that Campsite 3 would add a lieutenant position in the future, and one of the outstanding newcomers might earn it. Su Ning laughed. Then remember to take care of me after you become lieutenant. Tao Qingping waved him off modestly, though his face was full of anticipation. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. A city guard outside saluted respectfully. Captain Chu requests Master Su Ning in his study. Su Ning frowned slightly. He had no idea why Chu Daiyou wanted to see him. Night had already fallen when Su Ning arrived at Chu Daiyou's study. Oil lamps flickered softly inside. Sit, Chu Daiyou said with a smile. After a few casual questions, Chu Daiyou suddenly asked, why did you refuse De Yuan Trading Company's gift? Su Ning's heart tightened. Once again, the matter had reached another superior. I don't believe in rewards without reason, Su Ning answered carefully. Good. Chu Daiyou smiled and placed a wooden box onto the table, the same box containing the 3 Qinglu Dawn. Su Ning's eyes narrowed immediately. For a moment, he thought Chu Daiyou might also be working with De Yuan Trading Company. But Chu Daiyou laughed. What? You think I'm like that coward Chun Ren and came to force the gift onto you again? Only then did Su Ning relax slightly. Chu Daiyou clearly knew everything already. Master, why is this box with you? Su Ning asked. Chu Daiyou paced slowly around the room. Someone instructed a city guard to secretly place it beneath your pillow. Instead, it was delivered to me. Then he took out a dart and tossed it onto the table with a metallic clang. Su Ning's expression darkened instantly. The meaning was obvious. Accept the bribe or face consequences. The Yuan Trading Company had escalated from temptation to outright threats. Savages, Su Ning muttered coldly. Yet he remained composed. Since Chu Daiyou had intercepted everything and summoned him personally, it meant the captain intended to protect him. Chu Daiyou observed Su Ning's calm reaction with approval. Then he sighed lightly. I'm sorry for dragging you into this situation. Su Ning froze. From Chu Daiyou's tone, he suddenly realized something. His assignment to Maple Lane Guard Station and De Yuan Trading Company's obsession with recruiting him might both be connected to Chu Daiyou himself. Chu Daiyou patted Su Ning's shoulder. Don't blame me, he said sincerely. Although you're in trouble now, this may become an opportunity later. Su Ning asked directly. Master, can you explain more clearly? Instead of answering immediately, Chu Daiyou asked, what do you know about De Yuan Trading Company? Su Ning repeated what Chun Ren had told him, that De Yuan Trading Company helped develop Kangyun County, contributed heavily to trade, and held enormous influence. Chu Dayo nodded. What Chunrin said isn't false. The Yuan Trading Company did help the Black Armored Guards stabilize Kangyun County in the early years. But contribution does not excuse their current behavior. A cold look flashed through his eyes. As their power grew, they became dissatisfied with being mere merchants. They wanted control. According to Chu Dayo, the major turning point came 8 years ago when Kai Qinghan became captain of Campsite 1. Since then, Kai Qinghan and the Yuan Trading Company had worked together closely, even allowing the company to interfere with Black Armored Guard policies. Meanwhile, the higher leadership of Kangyun County had gradually changed. The current commander, Wei Chongqing, came from a major family in Yunying City and only wished to serve his term peacefully, without trouble. This gave Kai Qinghan room to expand his influence further. The Maple Lane Guard Station is their strongest stronghold, Chu Dayo said coldly. From top to bottom, most of them are puppets. Su Ning finally understood the deeper conflict within the Black Armored Guards. Although Wei Chongqing held the highest authority, he avoided involvement. Captain Xia Yuanqing and Captain Ning Fengwen opposed Kai Qinghan, but neither side originally held a decisive advantage. Only after Campsite 3 was established and Chu Dayo was promoted did the balance begin shifting. Then Chu Dayo finally explained Su Ning's situation. When the newcomers were assigned, Maple Lane specifically requested no new recruits. They didn't want my people entering their territory. I deliberately placed you there anyway. Su Ning immediately understood. To Chu Dayo and the others, he was a probe, a thorn inserted into the Yuan Trading Company's strongest foundation. As long as he remained in Maple Lane, the company would never feel secure. That was why they kept trying to recruit or threaten him. We're preparing to fight the Yuan Trading Company, Chu Dayo admitted openly. You were our first move. Then he added, but don't think we're abandoning you. 3 captains stand behind you. If the Yuan Trading Company weakens because of this struggle, you'll become the first lieutenant of Campsite 3. Su Ning's expression barely changed. Whether he liked it or not, he had already been dragged into the conflict. Still, he asked one final question. Master, why choose me? There were stronger yellow plate recruits. Chu Dayo laughed. Because you're smarter. He explained that he had investigated Su Ning's background. Though Su Ning was originally an outsider in Tao Village, he had integrated well and earned the villagers' trust, proving his character wasn't bad. More importantly, during the conflict with Tan Village, Chu Dayo noticed Su Ning stayed calm while others acted recklessly. He looked for efficient opportunities instead of charging blindly. A wise man is more useful in Maple Lane than a strong one, Chu Dayo said. You're cautious, difficult to corrupt, and capable of protecting yourself. And when the opportunity comes, you can strike effectively. Su Ning finally understood why Chu Dayo valued him so highly. At the same time, his own thoughts about dealing with Maple Lane and the Yuan Trading Company became much clearer. That's enough for tonight. Chu Dayo tossed the wooden box to Su Ning. This belongs to you now. Su Ning caught it hesitantly. Chu Dayo smiled faintly. I confiscated it personally. It's no longer their gift. Thank you, Master Chu. Su Ning thanked him, but remained standing. Chu Dayo raised an eyebrow. Anything else? Su Ning hesitated before asking carefully. Master, can I exchange these 3 Qinglu Dan for silvertails? The next morning, Su Ning arrived at Maple Lane Guard Station carrying a rectangular wooden box. Feng Xigua quickly approached him and lowered his voice. Master, several black armored guards came this morning. They're all inside Lieutenant Chen's study. Su Ning was slightly surprised. During his days at Maple Lane, he had barely seen the other guards together. They didn't ask for me. Feng Xigua shook his head. Su Ning smiled casually. Then it has nothing to do with me. He then instructed Feng Xigua. I need to handle something important. Guard the door for me. No one is allowed inside, not even if Lieutenant Chen calls for me. Feng Xigua sensed Su Ning's unusual seriousness and immediately agreed. Inside his study, Su Ning placed the wooden box onto the table and opened it. 6 swallowtail flowers lay neatly inside. The previous night, after Chu Dayo gave him the 3 Qinglu Dan, Su Ning had requested to exchange them for silver instead. Chu Dayo agreed without hesitation and exchanged them for 1,500 taels from Campsite 3's warehouse. Early this morning, Su Ning secretly visited another district and bought 6 swallowtail flowers from a shop unrelated to the Yuan Trading Company. Thanks to his black armored guard status, he even received a favorable price. Looking at the flowers, Su Ning smiled. 6 swallowtail flowers, 18 units of energy. One by one, he absorbed them through the martial arts panel. After the last flower withered into ash inside the stove, the panel refreshed. Name, Su Ning. Martial arts. Spring Breeze Tactic, Mortal Realm 2nd Stage. Muscle Bone Realm, plus. Gale Knife Method, Intermediate, plus. Light Feather Bow, Elementary, plus. Source Breath Bodybuilding Tactic, Beginner, plus. Available energy, 24 units. Su Ning's eyes brightened. Without hesitation, he selected the plus beside Spring Breeze Tactic. Consume 12 units of energy to level up Spring Breeze Tactic? Yes/no. Yes. The panel changed instantly. Name, Su Ning. Martial arts. Spring Breeze Tactic, Mortal Realm 3rd Stage, Inner Enrichment, plus. Gale Knife Method, Intermediate, plus. Light Feather Bow, Elementary, plus. Source Breath Bodybuilding Tactic, Beginner, plus. Available energy, 12 units. A violent surge spread through Su Ning's body. His blood roared like boiling water as burning energy tempered every muscle, bone, and organ. Unlike before, the strengthening now felt complete. His body had reached the peak limits of ordinary human capability. Strength, speed, endurance, and agility all transformed dramatically. Su Ning clenched his fist and felt explosive power flowing through him. Even the sounds within his body changed from the buzzing of the muscle-bone realm into the quiet gurgling of surging blood. Only now did he fully understand the difference between internal and external skills. An internal skill master, even with weak external techniques, could easily suppress ordinary martial artists through overwhelming physical enhancement alone. Combined with his intermediate Gale Knife method, Su Ning believed he had likely become the strongest among the new recruits. Winning a yellow plate in the next assessment no longer seemed difficult. Then he checked the panel again and pressed the plus beside Spring Breeze Tactic once more. Consume 25 units of energy to level up Spring Breeze Tactic? Yes/no. Su Ning frowned slightly. Advancing from the 3rd to the 4th Mortal Realm stage required more than double the energy. But he understood why. The first 3 stages focused on refining the physical body. By the Inner Enrichment realm, the body had already reached near human limits. From the 4th stage onward, cultivation shifted toward internal chi rather than simple physical strength. At that point, true internal martial arts began. And within the Black Armored Guards, Mortal Realm 4th stage was the minimum requirement to become a lieutenant. Su Ning stood before the martial arts panel, staring at the remaining 12 units of energy. He could push his Gale Knife technique to perfection. That would maximize his immediate combat strength. But doing so would consume everything he had, leaving nothing for future cultivation. More importantly, he would have to delay improving the Source Breath bodybuilding tactic. After Wei Changqing publicly distributed the complete Source Breath bodybuilding tactic, Su Ning had studied it carefully. The black lines on the stone tablet from the assessment were also part of its guidance system. In his view, this external skill had extreme potential. If cultivated further, his physical strength could reach a level where no newcomer could match him. So the choice became clear in conflict, not simplicity. Gale Knife technique, immediate combat power. Source Breath bodybuilding tactic, long-term dominance. Or saving energy entirely to prepare for breaking into the Qi realm. Su Ning remained undecided. At the same time, inside Chunren's study, tension was rising. All 6 black armored guards stationed at Maple Lane were present. Chunren sat in his chair, face dark. "Where is Su Ning?" he asked coldly. A city guard trembled. "Master Chun, I already informed him." "Then why isn't he here yet?" The room went silent. Chunren's expression turned sharp. He's starting to forget who's in charge here. News of Su Ning returning the Qinglu Dawn again last night had already irritated him. Now Su Ning openly ignoring his summons felt like direct defiance. "Pandu." A thin, pale man stood up. His eyes were lifeless, his presence cold. "Go bring him here," Chunren ordered. "Understood." Pandu left immediately. At Su Ning's courtyard, Feng Xigua still stood guard. Pandu arrived and glanced at him with clear disdain. "Where is Su Ning?" "He is handling important matters," Feng Xigua answered. Pandu's eyes narrowed. "More important than Lieutenant Chen's orders?" Without warning, he shoved Feng Xigua aside and walked forward. Feng Xigua gritted his teeth and blocked him again. "Master Su is busy. Please do not disturb him." Pandu paused, surprised that a mere city guard dared to stop him. Then his expression turned cold. "You're asking for death." He struck Feng Xigua in the abdomen. The impact sent Feng Xigua flying into pain and blood. He collapsed, barely conscious. Yet even then, he forced himself to grab Pandu's leg. Pandu frowned. "Are you insane?" He lifted his foot and stomped down on Feng Xigua's head with killing intent. Feng Xigua's vision blurred. Regret flickered through his mind, but only for a moment. Then came acceptance. He had lived an ordinary life. If this was the end, at least it meant something. But before the crushing force landed, a slap echoed through the courtyard. Su Ning had appeared without anyone noticing. Pandu was sent stumbling sideways, his face deformed by the impact. He crashed into the ground, dazed and disoriented. "Ah!" Pandu clutched his face in shock and pain. "Su Ning, you attacked a colleague." Su Ning walked forward calmly. "So now you care about colleagues?" He grabbed Pandu by the collar and lifted him with ease. Pandu's expression changed instantly. Su Ning's strength was far beyond what he expected. Before he could react, Su Ning slammed him against the wall. Then Su Ning spoke coldly. "You bully a city guard, and you still call yourself a colleague?" Slap, slap, slap. One after another, the slaps rang through the courtyard. Pandu tried to resist, but each attempt only tightened Su Ning's grip on his neck. He could only protect himself weakly, humiliation burning hotter than pain. On the ground, Feng Xigua lay bleeding, unable to laugh, but a bitter satisfaction filled his chest. In his heart, only one thought remained. Deserved. Pandu fainted. Su Ning had used too much force. The gap between them was absolute. Pandu was only at the muscle-bone realm, while Su Ning had already stepped into the inner enrichment stage. With the source breath bodybuilding tactic also reaching intermediate level, his physical strength had nearly doubled. The combined power of his strike had far exceeded what Pandu's body could endure. He had no serious life-threatening injuries, but he was completely incapacitated. Su Ning casually tossed him aside. Then he walked to Feng Xigua. Old Feng. Master. Feng Xigua's voice was weak, his face pale as he forced himself to respond. Good work, Su Ning said simply. With support, Feng Xigua was helped out of the courtyard. Su Ning immediately ordered a nearby city guard to send him to the hospital, using the best medicine available and reporting all expenses to the guard station. Don't worry about the cost, Su Ning added calmly. Send the bill to me. Feng Xigua tried to speak, but Su Ning stopped him. I'll handle it. Soon, Feng Xigua was carried away. Su Ning stood alone in the courtyard, looking at the flowers and plants outside Chun Ren's study. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried a cold edge. This was the first time someone had been injured because of him. There was guilt, but more than that, anger. It was all hidden beneath a completely emotionless exterior. Captain Chu said on the foundation. Then I should build something strong enough to stand on its own. He turned and walked toward Chun Ren's study. Inside the study, 5 black armored guards were already waiting. Why isn't Pandu back yet? The bald man muttered irritably. Chun Ren's patience was also running thin. This meeting had been called because of Su Ning, but Su Ning himself had not arrived. Then the door opened. Su Ning walked in. Master Chun, he greeted, fists cupped. But there was no humility in his tone. He stood straight, unmoving. Chun Ren's eyelid twitched. Do you not even understand basic etiquette anymore? Do you need me to teach you how to salute properly? The bald man, Zhuang Dingshi, stood up immediately, voice sharp and threatening. As Chun Ren's right-hand man and a beneficiary of Dayuan Trading Company's bribes, he had no intention of tolerating Su Ning's attitude. Su Ning glanced at him, then smiled faintly. He stepped back half a pace and said nothing. But his right hand quietly rested behind his back, on a dagger. Zhuang Dingshi's anger flared instantly. Before he could act, Chun Ren spoke. Su Ning, Chun Ren said coldly, this is Maple Lane Guard Station. You must follow the rules. Yes, master, Su Ning replied instantly. Too quickly, too calmly. Then he fell silent again. Chun Ren exhaled slowly, trying to suppress his irritation. But before he could continue, he noticed something off. Where is Pandu? Su Ning answered without hesitation. He attacked a city guard without reason. I taught him a lesson. He should still be lying in front of my courtyard. Silence. Then, bastard. Chun Ren slammed the table, finally losing control. You dared to attack your own men? Zhuang Dingshi, take him down. Yes. Zhuang Dingshi stepped forward immediately. The room tensed. Su Ning flicked his arm and deflected the incoming grab. Zhuang Dingshi's expression changed. You dare resist? He threw a heavy punch. Su Ning met it head-on. Boom. The collision sounded dull, but the result was not. Zhuang Dingshi's face twisted. His forearm bones snapped instantly, sweat bursting from his forehead. He staggered back in shock. What? Even Chun Ren's expression changed. Zhuang Dingshi was an inner enrichment warrior with source breath bodybuilding tactic at beginner level, one of the strongest under his command. Yet he had been crippled in a single exchange. And Su Ning, according to records, was only at muscle-bone realm. That was impossible. Unless... A thought struck Chun Ren. Chu Dayo. He planted him here. A deliberately hidden pawn. A weapon disguised as a recruit. The more Chun Ren thought, the more it made sense. Su Ning's sudden rise, his calm defiance, Dayuan Trading Company's pressure, Chu Dayo's interference, it all connected. His expression darkened. This was no longer a simple recruit. Su Ning spoke calmly. I didn't resist orders. I only punished someone who broke the rules first. Then he cupped his fists again. I am still a Campsite 3 member. If you want to restrict me, consult Master Chu first. A pause. Then, I have other duties to attend to. Farewell. He turned and walked out. No one stopped him. Not Chun Ren. Not the others. Because none of them were sure what Su Ning truly was anymore. After he left, the room fell into silence. Chun Ren stood by the window, expression unreadable. The birds chirped in the courtyard below. Normally, he would have been irritated by their sound. Today he only felt uneasy. Finally, he made a decision. I need to speak to the chief manager. He put on his coat and left for Dayuan Trading Company. Su Ning returned straight to his study, using the excuse that Chu Dayo had assigned him tasks. In reality, the situation at the guard station was already clear. Chun Ren was dissatisfied with him, and survival here meant leveraging Chu Dayo's name whenever necessary. When he reached his courtyard, Pandu was already gone. Whether he had been carried away or dragged himself off, Su Ning didn't care enough to find out. He simply returned to his room and handled the aftermath. An hour later, the city guard who had escorted Feng Xigua to the hospital returned with the bill. 20 taels. Su Ning noted the cost silently, lighter than expected. Feng Xigua's injuries were likely not life-threatening, though he would need rest. Take this to the accountant, Su Ning ordered. The guard nodded and left. In the following days, Su Ning stopped reporting to the guard station daily, only appearing occasionally. During this time, he met Chu Dayo again. Chu Dayo spoke more directly about the situation between the captains. The alliance of him, Xia Yuanxing, and Ning Fengwen had finally overtaken Kai Qinghan's influence, but Kai Qinghan was clearly preparing countermeasures. He warned Su Ning to stay alert for retaliation from Deyuan Trading Company. Before leaving, Chu Dayo handed him 500 taels. Su Ning accepted without refusal. War against influence always cost money. As New Year approached, Campsite 3 filled with festive energy. The newcomers received their year-end rewards. Su Ning got 200 taels and a swallowtail flower, plus his monthly salary of 50 taels. His total savings rose to nearly 800 taels, though he knew resources alone would no longer give him meaningful breakthroughs. Money was now also needed for survival, relationships, and family support. That night, Tao Qingping asked about New Year plans. Su Ning had none. Leave was restricted until after the first assessment. Still, Tao Qingyuan organized a gathering for all newcomers at Runfeng Restaurant. Su Ning agreed. It was the first time the Tao village group would reunite since entering the guard system. On New Year's Day, firecrackers echoed across Campsite 3. Su Ning woke to the sound and dressed in a new cotton coat sent by his sister. The camp was decorated with lanterns and couplets, and even the usually rigid atmosphere felt relaxed as guards exchanged greetings. After breakfast, everyone assembled at the drill field where Wei Changqing gave a brief New Year address, encouraging discipline and cultivation before dismissing them. Once released, Tao Qingyuan immediately gathered the Tao village newcomers, announcing their celebration at Runfeng Restaurant. The group cheered and set off together. Su Ning walked at the back of the group with Tao Jin. She wished him a happy new year, and he returned the greeting casually. Noticing his changed demeanor, Tao Jin studied him more carefully. He now carried a calm confidence that hadn't been there before. She wondered how much he had progressed since arriving in the county, especially since she herself had stalled at the inner enrichment realm, still far from the Qi realm, a barrier even Tao Qingyuan had not crossed. The group continued forward in high spirits, the New Year celebration pulling them briefly away from the tensions that were steadily building beneath the surface of Kanyan County. The moment Runfeng Restaurant came into view, the group's pace slowed. Su Ning immediately noticed it, and then saw the reason. Another group was approaching from the opposite side. Tan Fengying led them. The atmosphere instantly stiffened. Ever since their clash in the dining hall, both sides had been openly hostile, and now they had arrived at the same place at the same time. Su Ning felt a trace of concern. Wei Changqing had just emphasized unity during the New Year's speech. Another public fight would only bring trouble. Tao Qingyuan clearly noticed the situation earlier than anyone else, but the Tan group deliberately quickened their pace, forcing a simultaneous arrival at the restaurant entrance. Slow down, Tan Fengying said, stepping forward to block the way. Tao Qingyuan's expression remained controlled. It was the new year. He didn't want conflict. We were here first. Let us enter first, Tan Fengying insisted, refusing compromise. Tao Qingyuan frowned and glanced back at his group. If he backed down now, it would damage his authority. Yet forcing a conflict would be even worse. The door is wide enough for both groups, he said calmly, still restraining himself. But Tan Fengying pressed further. My foot stepped here first. We should go first. The tension escalated quickly. The restaurant waiters stood frozen, knowing both groups were black armored guards, but unsure how to intervene. Tao Qingyuan's patience finally thinned. He pushed Tan Fengying's arm aside. That small action was all Tan Fengying needed. A smirk formed on his face. This wasn't just about old grievances. It was also about reasserting control over his own group after his influence had started to weaken. If he could provoke Tao Qingyuan here, his position among the Tan village newcomers would be reinforced. He had trained hard since joining the black armored guards, even reaching the elementary level of the source breath bodybuilding tactic. As far as he knew, no other village leader in Campsite 3 had done the same. As Tao Qingyuan stepped forward to enter, Tan Fengying grabbed his sleeve. That was the final trigger. Both sides moved at once. Tao Qingyuan struck first, and Tan Fengying met him head-on, both in the inner enrichment realm, but Tan Fengying's cultivation technique gave him the clear advantage. Just as their fists were about to collide, a figure suddenly appeared between them. Su Ning. He blocked both strikes simultaneously. The force of two inner enrichment warriors should have been explosive, but Su Ning stopped it cleanly. Tao Qingyuan froze. So did Tan Fengying. Neither of them could understand it. Su Ning was supposed to be at the muscle-bone realm, yet he had casually neutralized their full-force attacks. Su Ning spoke calmly. It's New Year's Day. A fight isn't appropriate. Master Wei also wants harmony. His tone was steady, but firm. Neither side pushed further. Slowly, both withdrew their fists, though tension still burned beneath their expressions. Su Ning stepped back behind Tao Qingyuan, having already assessed the situation clearly. Tin Fengying had advanced further in the source breath bodybuilding tactic, and Tao Qingyuan would lose in a direct clash. More importantly, a fight here would bring unnecessary consequences for everyone involved. Tao Jin looked at Su Ning for a long moment, noticing how different he now seemed, composed, confident, and difficult to read. The groups finally entered the restaurant together. Inside the private room, tea, fruits, nuts, and a warm fire awaited them. Through the window, New Year celebrations continued in the streets below. After things settled, Tao Qingyuan personally thanked Su Ning for stopping the conflict and offered him tea. Su Ning replied lightly that he simply didn't want anyone injured during the new year, especially when internal disputes would only create trouble for everyone under Captain Chu's command. Tao Qingyuan nodded, then cautiously brought up Chu Daio's recent visits. Su Ning confirmed it without hiding anything, stating it was related to Maple Lane and Daiyuan Trading Company. Tao Qingyuan lowered his voice at the mention, acknowledging how complicated the situation had become. After a brief pause, he considered asking about Su Ning's progress in martial arts, but stopped himself. It was a private matter unless Su Ning chose to reveal it. Instead, he raised his cup. Happy New Year. Su Ning did the same. As the two clinked cups, Tao Qingyuan silently thought that if Su Ning had been born into the Tao family instead, he might have been the one leading them now. But there was no jealousy in that thought, only recognition. He then moved through the room, greeting each member one by one as the New Year celebration began in earnest. The Tao village gathering quickly shifted into a lively atmosphere after Su Ning's intervention at the entrance. Word of his actions spread fast through the private room. Everyone who had witnessed him stopping both Tao Qingyuan and Tan Fengying now looked at him differently. Respect, curiosity, and a hint of awe replaced the casual familiarity from before. One by one, people came over to greet Su Ning for the new year. Some even began discussing him in low voices, speculating that with his current strength, he might soon become the third yellow plate candidate from Tao village after the next assessment. In many eyes, Su Ning had already begun to surpass Tao Jin in reputation, quietly becoming the second most influential figure among them. A few even joked that if Su Ning carried the surname Tao, he might already be competing for Tao Qingyuan's position. The celebration continued in warmth and noise. For many of them, being in the city during the new year made homesickness unavoidable, but gathering with familiar faces softened it. Su Ning also allowed himself to relax for once, quietly blending into the festive atmosphere. Only he noticed Tao Jin sitting somewhat detached from the group, her expression unusually blank. He observed it briefly but didn't intervene. Their relationship wasn't close enough for him to intrude. Across the room, Tin Fengying was also far from relaxed. Beneath his outward calm, unease lingered. Su Ning's sudden rise in strength made him feel exposed and threatened. If Su Ning truly aimed for a yellow plate spot in the upcoming assessment, he would likely be the first obstacle removed. The thought hardened his resolve. By the time lunch ended, the group gradually dispersed into smaller clusters. With the New Year holiday giving them rare freedom, many planned to explore the city. Tao Qingyuan invited Su Ning to join them, but Su Ning declined. Instead, he bought some pastries and sweets from the street and headed alone toward the eastern residential district. He was going to see Feng Xigua. Yunshi Alley wasn't far, and within minutes he reached a dense area of connected courtyard houses. Not knowing the exact location, he asked a group of children for directions. The leading boy, curious and bold, confirmed Feng Xigua's identity and agreed to guide him. After some hesitation and Su Ning's gift of sweets instead of money, the children happily led him through the lanes. Soon, they stopped in front of a modest but tidy home decorated with spring festival couplets and lanterns. Su Ning thanked them, watching the children scatter excitedly with the candy, briefly reminded of Tao Tao. He knocked on the door. A woman's voice responded from inside, telling him to enter. Inside, a strong-built woman with a sharp, almost intimidating presence stood holding pumpkin seeds. Su Ning immediately recognized her as Feng Xigua's wife from his descriptions. At the mention of his name, her expression changed instantly. She rushed inside shouting for Feng Xigua. Moments later, Feng Xigua emerged, clearly startled. Despite his pale lips and lingering weakness, he appeared mostly recovered. Master Su, why are you here? Su Ning didn't answer directly. He simply handed the gifts over. You were injured. I came to see you. Feng Xigua hurriedly invited him in, still surprised. Su Ning had already arranged treatment for him, covered medical costs, and even checked in during his recovery. For Feng Xigua, that alone had been more than enough, far more than most black armored guards would ever bother to do. Still, he hadn't expected a personal visit. Inside the house, Su Ning sat near the stove, feeling the warmth of the fire. Feng Xigua's wife quickly brought water, her earlier doubts replaced with cautious respect. In her eyes, anyone from the black armored guards was far above ordinary people, and Su Ning, especially, carried an unmistakable authority now. Xigua's wife placed the tea in front of Su Ning, and he drank it without hesitation. Su Ning then spoke directly. Old Feng, I'm the reason you got beaten. He knew Pan Du had come for him in anger, and Feng Xigua had simply been caught in the way. Feng Xigua quickly shook his head. Master, you're too kind. I was only doing my duty. It's not your fault. Pan Du is just vicious. Su Ning observed him closely and found no resentment toward him at all. Instead, Feng Xigua continued warmly. And you already avenged me, beating Pan Du for my sake. I've never been treated like that before. For a low-ranked guard like him, that moment had carried real dignity. Su Ning smiled faintly. Once you're back at the guard station, avoid Pan Du. I can't protect you all the time. But if he dares to touch you again, I won't ignore it. His tone was calm but firm, and Feng Xigua immediately felt reassured. He had already come to rely on Su Ning, not just because of respect, but because he saw his future. At only 17, Su Ning had already defeated Pan Du with Campsite 3 newly established and the lieutenant position still vacant. Feng Xigua believed Su Ning could rise quickly within a few years, and so could he along with him. Warmth filled the small room as they spoke by the stove. Su Ning, now at the inner enrichment realm, no longer feared the cold, yet he still subconsciously enjoyed the fire's comfort. After a short while, he stood to leave. Before going, Su Ning pressed a 100-tael silver note into Feng Xigua's hand. Feng Xigua and his wife were stunned. It was nearly a year's income for him. Master, this. Keep it, Su Ning said simply. But Feng Xigua immediately tried to refuse, pushing it back. He knew Su Ning's income was limited and the money would be more useful for cultivation resources. More importantly, he believed his future status would improve naturally if he followed Su Ning. Su Ning pushed it back into his hand again. You handle my affairs well and save me trouble. That alone is worth it. In the future, you'll need money for errands anyway. After a pause, Feng Xigua finally gave in. Then, thank you, sir. When Su Ning left, the couple kept staring at the note. Though their income was stable, expenses in Kangyun County were high, especially with their children's martial training. The sum was overwhelming. At first, Feng Xigua's wife worried about accepting it, but Feng Xigua shook his head. This isn't just money. It's trust, and more tasks will come from Master Su in the future. She agreed, and they carefully put it away, already thinking ahead. The New Year festivities ended, and the break for the black armored guards lasted 6 days, though the station remained loosely managed. When Su Ning returned, he found the yard neglected and empty, no guards, not even Shunren. He didn't mind. His focus remained on his duties, patrols with city guards, handling disputes in Maple Lane, and completing assigned tasks. There was also no contact from Dayuan Trading Company. Days passed quietly, until 5 or 6 days later, Shunren finally returned. On the surface, he acted as if nothing had happened, and Su Ning remained calm as well, though he knew the conflict was only temporarily buried. Chu Dao had already hinted that the station would soon move against Dayuan Trading Company, and once that happened, tensions would erupt again. The current peace was only the calm before the storm. With Feng Xigua back on duty, Su Ning's workload became smoother. He delegated paperwork and tedious matters to him, while the other guards began to subtly change their attitude. Outwardly, they kept their distance from both Su Ning and Chun Ren, but privately, they leaned towards Su Ning. His backing from Chu Dao made him dangerous to approach openly, yet his willingness to stand up for subordinates made him trustworthy. Everyone at the station understood the situation. Chun Ren still held authority, but Su Ning was rising. After work, Su Ning left the station and went to a roadside stall instead of returning directly. Kangyun County was always busy, even at night, and food stalls lined the streets for travelers and workers. He stopped at a familiar wonton stall he had visited many times before. The couple running it worked in quiet coordination, the husband serving and cleaning, the wife preparing and cooking, familiar and steady, like the taste that had once reminded Su Ning of home. Master, you are here. The moment Su Ning sat down, the stall owner quickly recognized him. Su Ning was already a frequent customer. 3 large bowls of wontons. That's all. Right away. The owner smiled and hurried off. Soon, 1 steaming bowl was served first. The man explained carefully. I'll bring the next bowl when you're almost done. This way it won't get cold. Good, Su Ning nodded. He picked up his spoon, about to eat, then paused. A faint sense of unease surfaced. He glanced sideways. A nearby noodle stall was crowded as well. In the corner sat a man in a gray coat, around his 30s, plain-looking, completely unremarkable. But Su Ning's gaze lingered for a brief moment. Then he calmly turned back and continued eating. At that exact moment, the gray-clothed man also looked up, watching Su Ning's back. Was I noticed, or just coincidence? He lowered his head slightly, letting his hair cover his eyes, but his attention never left Su Ning. Su Ning ate slowly and steadily, finishing all 3 bowls without a single unnecessary movement. After paying, he left without glancing back. Only then did the gray-clothed man relax slightly. He waited a while, then also paid and followed. The streets of Kangyun County were still lively under lantern light. Su Ning walked through the night market instead of returning directly, casually browsing stalls and buying a few small trinkets. The man in gray followed from a distance. A black armored guard has this much free time. He adjusted his distance carefully, closer in crowds, farther in open stretches, always blending in perfectly. Eventually, Su Ning left the night market and headed toward Campsite 3, passing through Maple Lane and into a bamboo forest. The gray-clothed man followed without hesitation. Inside the forest, moonlight and distant lantern glow barely lit the path. Then suddenly, Su Ning disappeared. The man quickened his pace, scanning left and right. I lost him. A cold breeze brushed his neck. He turned. Su Ning stood right behind him, smiling faintly, a knife already in hand. The man's expression changed instantly. He stepped back. Too late. A flash of steel cut through his escape route, slicing off a corner of his gray coat. Fast reaction. The man immediately understood. He had been exposed. Without hesitation, he turned and fled into the dense bamboo forest. But Su Ning was already moving. His body shot forward like an arrow. With his refined control over the source breath bodybuilding tactic and inner enrichment realm strength, his speed and explosiveness far exceeded normal limits. The gap closed instantly. Damn it. The gray-clothed man relied on a specialized movement technique and tried to change direction repeatedly, but Su Ning matched every adjustment with precise control. Steel flashed again. This time, the blade struck true, cutting deep into the man's right arm. Bone was nearly reached. Arg! Pain shattered his balance. He staggered, nearly collapsing. Su Ning didn't hesitate. He grabbed the man by the neck and slammed him down. The man's face went pale with fear. Before he could speak, Su Ning sheathed his blade. I'm not listening. A heavy punch landed on his neck. The world went dark. Su Ning checked the wound, then tore cloth from the man's sleeve and bound it quickly to stop the bleeding. He wasn't trying to kill him, just to capture him. He already had a rough guess, either from Dayuan Trading Company or Chunren's side. Either way, the goal was surveillance, not assassination. His movements likely mattered for bigger plans. And honestly, Su Ning didn't care to investigate personally. He dragged the unconscious man back to Campsite 3. Outside Chu Daio's study, Su Ning knocked. Come in. Su Ning entered and reported directly. Master, someone was following me. Oh. Chu Daio raised an eyebrow, unsurprised. Did he know you discovered him? Yes. I knocked him out and brought him to the confinement room. Chu Daio nodded slowly, unfazed. Su Ning frowned slightly. Why would they target me? I'm just a small figure. Why not monitor the camp directly? Chu Daio let out a light laugh. And how do you know, he said calmly, that the spy isn't from our own side? Su Ning's mind flickered the moment Chu Daio spoke. A spy inside the camp? Almost immediately, he recalled something. How Dayuan Trading Company had once used city guards inside the camp to deliver him Qinglu Dan. If they could infiltrate that deeply once, they could do it again. But then another thought followed. What's the point of spying here? Campsite 3 was only a training ground for newcomers. Even if there were secrets, they shouldn't be worth this level of infiltration. Su Ning frowned, trying to piece it together. He almost asked, but then remembered something Tao Qingping had mentioned a few days earlier. Starting next year, recruits in Campsite 3 would reduce patrol training and shift towards simulated battlefield exercises. That detail clicked in his mind. Are Kai Qinghan and Chu Daio preparing for direct conflict? Once that possibility surfaced, the scattered clues, spies, training changes, tension in the guard station, all began to connect. But Su Ning stopped himself from digging deeper. These were not matters for someone at his level. From now on, increase inspections in Maple Lane, Chu Daio said calmly. Report any abnormalities immediately. Understood. Su Ning cupped his fists. Though he didn't fully understand the situation, he could feel it clearly. Something was about to break. You can go rest now, Chu Daio added. I'll handle the interrogation. Su Ning left without another word. That same night, inside Dayuan Trading Company, the atmosphere was heavy. Only a few dim candles lit the room. Deputy Manager Yu Xinghe stood stiffly beside the table, sweat forming on his forehead. Across from him sat Duan Iha, the chief manager, tapping his fingers slowly against the wood. Each tap echoed like a countdown. It's been so long, and Huijio still hasn't returned, Duan Iha said quietly. Yu Xinghe swallowed hard. Chief Manager, this is my fault. His voice trembled despite his rank being only slightly lower than Duan Iha's. He quickly explained. With Chu Daio and Xia Yuanxing tightening their stance, I suspected they might have new information, so I sent Huijio to monitor Su Ning. He stays at Maple Lane. He seemed like the best target. Before he could finish. Idiot. Duan Iha slammed the table. The sound cracked through the room. Yu Xinghe froze instantly. It's fine to send someone, Duan Iha said coldly, but why Huijio? His expression darkened completely. He knows too much. If he's captured by Chu Daio, everything we've built collapses. Do you understand what that means? Even Kai Qinghan can't protect us then. The headquarters would abandon us without hesitation. Then his tone shifted. I'll use this chance to enter the 7-line gates, he said calmly. I'm still a Mortal Realm 5th stage Pneumatic Realm warrior. I won't be useless anywhere. And in return, the faction fed them intelligence and protection, helping them avoid black armored guard operations. Chu Daio's expression tightened. Su Ning didn't just catch a spy, he stepped on something enormous. This was no longer a local corruption case. This was a full-blown connection to a magic faction. He stood up immediately. I need to report to Master Wei. Without hesitation, he gave orders. Seal all Dayuan Trading Company stores. Mobilize forces. Then he paused. No, don't use Campsite 3. Inform Campsite 2. Let experienced teams handle this. Yes. As the deputy left, Chu Dayo already headed out. Within hours, Kanyun County changed. The night turned tense and sharp. The city gates were sealed. Patrols increased. Search teams moved out. Stores were surrounded and shut down overnight. At the Maple Lane guard station, only a few people remained untouched: Su Ning, Chunrun, Pandu, and Zhuang Dingshi. Even higher-level figures were taken in for questioning. The entire city felt like it was being squeezed. The next morning, Su Ning learned everything. He didn't even eat before heading straight to the Maple Lane guard station. The streets were different. Black armored guards he didn't recognize stood at key points. The Yuan Trading Company stores were tightly sealed. City guards were nowhere to be seen. The station itself was empty. Su Ning sat down at his desk and rubbed his temples. This escalated far beyond what I expected. The investigation had reached a level he now understood clearly. Anything involving magic factions triggered absolute elimination protocols under the source faction's rules. Then a thought struck him. On the morning announcement, his name had been omitted entirely. Chu Dayo had intentionally buried his involvement. He protected me. A knock came at the door. Master. Feng Xigua rushed in without waiting for permission, face pale and sweaty. I was taken in the middle of the night. All the city guards were interrogated, some released, some still detained at Campsite 2. His voice shook. They even questioned Lieutenant Shun and others. Master, you weren't involved, right? Su Ning gave a faint smile. If I were involved, would I still be sitting here? Feng Xigua let out a relieved breath. Su Ning said nothing more. Only he knew. This entire storm had started from him. Kanyun County was under full lockdown. City guards and black armored guards sealed every entrance. Under Wei Chongqing's order, no one could enter or leave for 3 days. Only official black armored personnel were allowed passage. The city had turned into a controlled fortress. Near one of the gates, a man in a wool coat and cap pressed himself against a wall, peering at the heavy defenses. His fist slammed the stone in frustration. Yuxinghe. He had been discarded. Not long after Duan Iha left with the 7-line gates, the city erupted in chaos. Yuxinghe only realized the truth when he went searching. Duan Iha was gone, and he had been left behind as the scapegoat. By then, it was already too late. He slipped through alleys before the crackdown began, hiding in private houses. But the black armored guards began systematic searches at dawn, forcing him to move again and again until he was cornered by the sealed city. Now, staring at the impenetrable blockade, despair finally set in. Duan Iha. 20 years of loyalty, risk, and secret dealings with the 7-line gates, and this was his reward. Then his hatred turned outward. Huijiao. Su Ning. All of them. His fists tightened, killing intent flashing in his eyes, before he disappeared back into the alleys. That night, Su Ning returned to Campsite 3. The camp was mostly empty. The newcomers had all been reassigned or held back due to the ongoing crackdown. Only a few city guards remained on duty. Because of the situation, Su Ning, ironically the source of the incident, had no assignments. After a quiet meal, he returned to his room alone. Inside, silence pressed down. He sat down calmly. Martial arts panel. A translucent interface appeared. Name, Su Ning. Spring Breeze Tactic, Mortal Realm 3rd Stage. Inner Enrichment, plus. Gale Knife Method, Intermediate, plus. Source Breath Bodybuilding Tactic, Intermediate, plus. Light Feather Bow, Elementary, plus. Available energy, 6 units. 6 units of energy remained. Not enough to break into the Qi realm. He needed 25 units for that next step. He considered his options. Upgrading the light feather bow technique was possible, but unnecessary. In close quarters conflicts like this, bow skills had limited value. After a moment, he dismissed the idea. Instead, he spent some time reading a book by candlelight, then went to sleep. The room fell into darkness. Only his breathing remained steady. Outside, a faint sound scraped softly against the door. Cha-cha-chow. A narrow slit formed as an eye peeked inside. Yuxinghe had returned. His gaze locked onto the empty table. A cold smile formed. Su Ning, even if I die, I'll take you first. He had bribed a guard before to learn Su Ning's room. Now, with nowhere left to run, killing Su Ning became his final release. He slid a blade into the door gap and carefully worked the bolt open. No sound, no panic, only precision. Click. Unlocked. A twisted sense of satisfaction rose in his chest. Just one step. He pushed the door. Squeak. It opened. Moonlight spilled inside. And Su Ning was already there. Long time no see, Su Ning said calmly. Before Yuxinghe could react, a cold blade pierced his chest. His eyes widened. You. He tried to strike back, but another twist of the knife shattered his strength. Blood drained from his body as his heart was destroyed. Su Ning pulled the blade out. Yu Xinghe collapsed heavily to the floor. Silence returned to the room, as if nothing had happened at all. Yu Xinghe's body fell completely silent. Su Ning exhaled slowly, only now feeling a trace of relief. He was fortunate, truly fortunate, that he had upgraded the source breath bodybuilding tactic to the intermediate realm. The improvement had strengthened not only his body but also his perception. Otherwise, that ambush might have ended differently. He crouched down and checked Yu Xinghe's neck. A dry laugh escaped him. There was no point in verifying it. The heart had already been completely destroyed. There was no chance of survival. But instead of satisfaction, a faint regret surfaced. If Yu Xinghe had been kept alive, he could have been interrogated for information. However, Su Ning quickly dismissed that thought. Yu Xinghe had been stuck at the inner enrichment realm for 10 years. People like him rarely progressed further in cultivation. Most turned toward external techniques once their internal growth stagnated. As for Yu Xinghe's external skill level, Su Ning couldn't be certain. That uncertainty was exactly why he had chosen a decisive kill rather than risk a prolonged fight. Safety came first. Information came second. Still, are there others trying to kill me? The thought lingered. He was unaware of the wider situation in Kangyun County, unaware that almost all personnel connected to the Yuan Trading Company had already been arrested or eliminated, and that Duan Iha had fled with the 7-line gates. Only Yu Xinghe had reached him by chance. Su Ning let out a breath. I'll wait for updates. He immediately called over the night patrol city guards. The guards froze in shock when they saw the corpse and heard what had happened. Even though Campsite 3 had responsibility for security, none of them had expected an inner enrichment-level assassin to infiltrate so easily. Fortunately, Su Ning didn't pursue blame. He only ordered the body removed and the room cleaned before returning to rest as if nothing had happened. 10 days later, Kangyun County had changed drastically. The aftermath of the incident continued to spread. The Yuan Trading Company was completely dismantled. All affiliated shops were sealed, investigated, and later prepared for redistribution through auctions under strict supervision. Kai Qinghan was removed from office and sent back to Yunying City for judgment, even though he had not directly known about the 7-line gates connection. The vacant leadership position in Campsite 1 was filled by Ning Fengwen, now reporting directly to Wei Chongqing. Meanwhile, the entire city underwent restructuring under the supervision of Wei Chongqing, who was forced to remain in Kangyun County longer than expected due to the scale of the incident. Order slowly returned. Except in Maple Lane. There, the former trading empire had collapsed. Shops remained closed, streets were nearly empty, and the once busy district had fallen into silence. Shunrun, Pandu, and others connected to the case were all dismissed and sent away. In the end, only Su Ning remained at the Maple Lane guard station. During this period, more details surfaced. It became widely known that Duan Iha had escaped with the 7-line gates, while Yu Xinghe had been killed during the chaos. No one questioned the outcome, and Su Ning, for the first time since arriving in Kangyun County, found himself unexpectedly free. His duties had essentially ended. He returned to Campsite 3. Before entering, a guard informed him Chu Dayo wanted to see him. Su Ning was slightly surprised. Since the incident, Chu Dayo had been buried in work and hadn't appeared for days. Now, 10 days later, he had finally returned. In the office, Chu Dayo looked completely unkempt. Messy hair, untrimmed beard, but his eyes were sharp and energized. He was in a surprisingly good mood. Master, Su Ning greeted. Chu Dayo smiled. How have you been? Comfortable these days? I've been cultivating, Su Ning replied calmly. Preparing for assessment. Not really comfortable. That's more comfortable than most people. Chu Dayo laughed. Then his tone shifted slightly. This whole incident started because of you, but you're also the one who suffered the least. Su Ning only smiled. Chu Dayo's expression turned serious. I told you before, you would be promoted to lieutenant after this matter ended. Su Ning's eyes lit slightly. Not because of authority, but because of the higher pay and resources. But then, Chu Dayo continued, however, I didn't expect things to resolve so quickly. You haven't reached the Qi realm yet, so you can't officially become a lieutenant. Su Ning's expression dimmed a little. He understood the rules. The black armored guards required cultivation at the Qi realm before promotion. Seeing his reaction, Chu Dayo added, but you can become acting lieutenant. Su Ning frowned. Acting lieutenant? You get all responsibilities and authority, Chu Dayo explained, but not the salary or subsidies of a lieutenant. Su Ning's expression immediately tightened. More work, no benefits. Before he could respond, Chu Dayo cut him off. Don't even think about refusing. His tone was firm. Among all of Campsite 3, you are the best. You exposed the Yuan Trading Company's secrets, uncovered 7-line gates involvement, and even handled Yu Xinghe yourself. Who else qualifies? He waved his hand. It's settled. Su Ning could only sigh inwardly and accept it. Then he asked, as acting lieutenant, do I report to Campsite 3 or Maple Lane? Chu Dayo answered without hesitation. Maple Lane. Chu Dayo's arrangement was straightforward. You're the only one left at Maple Lane guard station, he said. So you take full responsibility there. I'll assign you 5 newcomers. Since they're all rookies, you won't have trouble controlling them. It was clearly a deliberate choice. Experienced guards would resist authority, but newcomers would naturally accept Su Ning. Understood, Su Ning replied. Then Chu Dayo suddenly changed the topic. Your martial arts, they've improved a lot, haven't they? It was rare for him to ask directly, but Su Ning wasn't an ordinary recruit. Some progress, Su Ning answered calmly. Chu Dayo narrowed his eyes. In 2 months, the next assessment comes. Can you secure a yellow plate? Su Ning didn't hesitate. 90% confident. Chu Dayo laughed. Good. Back at the room, Su Ning found Tao Qingping had returned. He was sitting at the table, writing carefully under candlelight. Rare to see you back earlier than me, Su Ning said lightly. Tao Qingping glanced up with a tired smile, clearly exhausted from recent duties. Then he pointed at the paper. Sit. Write a family letter. A family letter? The camp had suddenly organized correspondence, saying everyone had been away for nearly 2 months and letters would be delivered tomorrow. Su Ning was slightly surprised, but didn't refuse. He sat down and wrote calmly. He described life in Campsite 3, deliberately leaving out the assassination attempt and other dangers, focusing only on stable and positive matters. At the end, he added a short note of gratitude to Guiyi. When finished, he sealed the letter and handed it to Tao Qingping for delivery. The next morning, the camp was already stirring. Feng Xigua rushed in late, disheveled, skipping breakfast entirely. At the gate, 2 city guards greeted him with strange grins. Father Gua. Feng Xigua nearly tripped. What did you call me? You don't know? Master Su has been appointed acting lieutenant of Maple Lane. Feng Xigua froze. Say that again. After hearing it clearly, he bolted inside, laughing as he ran. One of the guards sighed enviously. If I had been assigned there that day, I'd be his deputy instead. Inside the station, the appointment notice had already been posted. Feng Xigua stood in front of it, stunned, then burst into pride. He really did it. He steadied himself, straightened his clothes, and headed to Su Ning's study. Master, congratulations. He bowed deeply as soon as he entered. Su Ning smiled faintly, then immediately got to the point. The previous city guard supervisor had ties to Chunrin and received bribes from Yuxingha's side. He's been dismissed and investigated. The position is now open. He paused. I'm assigning it to you. Feng Xigua froze. Then bowed again, even deeper. Thank you for the promotion. He understood instantly. This was real power. From this moment, aside from the black armored guards, he was effectively the most influential person in Maple Lane. Su Ning looked at him calmly. Don't get arrogant. Remember what I taught you. Feng Xigua immediately sobered. Yes, master. Su Ning continued issuing instructions. The office would remain as it was for now. Chunrin's former study would stay vacant until he officially became lieutenant. Cleaning preparations would begin once new guards arrived. And Feng Xigua was to audit Chunrin's accounts with the new accountant. Each order carried weight. Feng Xigua felt the responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders, but he also felt pride. After he left, Su Ning stood alone in the study. He opened the window. A soft wind drifted in, warmer than before. I'm taking over Maple Lane, he murmured. And for the first time, the position didn't feel temporary.